Hi beautiful, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to do a makeup look and a first impression slash review on the latest L'Oreal product that I saw recently from the store, and this is the Very Much Love eyeshadow mega palette. So this is the 16 eyeshadow shade that has vivid berries, pure plums, and refined wine. And I believe that they also came out with another eyeshadow palette that looks like this, and that was called Cherry. It's My Cherry, and that one leans more on like a peachy, more neutral side of the spectrum, but I thought I'd purchase this one because I don't have this kind of shades, and this is something new from the drugstore. So this one supposedly has a fragrance for a yummy scented experience, so I'm excited to know if this actually smells. The only thing I hate about the packaging right off the bat is it's too hard to open. Like, the packaging is quite bulky and quite cheap looking, and you can't easily open it like any other palette. Oh god, I just broke my nail. It doesn't smell like sweet berry at all. In fact, it smells more perfumey, a sweet perfume scent, rather than it being berry. I don't know where the berry came from. I guess the colors. These are the eyeshadow shades. They're pretty much quite pretty. In the description they said it's refined wine, but I don't really see a more winey color except maybe for this shade right here, or maybe the white wine. I'm not sure, but yeah, I kind of like the array of purples there. And then you have the matte base shade, and then you have a matte brown shade, which is really good. So what I'm going to do is to swatch the mattes. So we have this shade right here. Ooh, they are very soft to the touch. So here are the matte shades. That pink shade though is very pigmented, and it doesn't appear to be powdery at all. So here are the shades. It's quite pigmented, and this one right here is probably the most pigmented out of all the shades, but they're good. These two shades, however, they kind of look similar. The only difference is that the shade at the bottom is a lot more darker, and I believe it's this one and that one somewhat look similar, but looking at it from the actual pan, it looks more brown, like a muted brown with a hint of purple, whereas if you look at it in the camera, it looks more like a grayish purple. So the darker shade in here is this one, and ooh, that is so pigmented. So I think that's probably the more winey shade out of all the shades from the eyeshadow palette. So that's what it looks like right there. It's not very intense as I was hoping it to be, because from the pan it looks very deep, but then when you swatch it, it doesn't translate as deep. So we're gonna move on to the shimmers, and I am going to swatch this shade right here, which is silver, but it has more of a purple shade. This peachy one, ooh, that is so pretty. Then the purple, and this darker purple, and this one. So here are the initial swatches of the shimmers. These two purples kind of look similar. Like, you can't barely tell the difference, and also they're swatching pretty sheer, which I'm quite disappointed because that purple right there looked pretty good. So I'm going to move on to this one right here. This shade, and maybe this shade right here. So again, here are the shades. So the white shade is more of a sparkly shadow. I feel like that's more of a topper, and then those two didn't really show up that beautiful. Again, a bit disappointing in this shade right here, because from the pan that looks very intense, but when you swatch it, it looks pretty different. But it could totally translate differently on the lids. So what I'm going to do is to prime my lids with my usual primer. So there's really nothing to set the eyeshadow in here because this one appears to be quite darker. But we will use that anyway, just to lay something on the lids. As I was dipping my brush, this shadow is somewhat powdery, so if you're concerned about that, then just keep that in mind. But personally, I'm not bothered. So what I'm going to do is to put this shade right here all over my lid. So I'm going to start with that, and then I am going to blend it out with another shade. So that shade seems to be a little bit pigmented when applied on the lids, but I find that as I pack and blend, it kind of disappears, as you can see right there. Like I feel like the shadow just fluffs off everywhere. So to kind of blend that out, I'm actually going to use this shade right here to blend the edges out. And oh, she's very, very powdery. I've noticed as I was trying to blow out the product and blend it out, the shade that I packed on my lid is pretty much gone. You know the type of eyeshadow when you're trying to blend it and it just spreads out? I feel like that's what's happening with this eyeshadow. As you can see here, that part right there was packed on, but that disappeared. Because I was trying to mainly just blend out the crease and the edges, and it like spread out. To deepen that out, I'm going to use the wine shade, and instead of blending, I might try to pack it on. So I'm going to use this one right here and use like a angled brush and slowly pack that on the outer V. Since the shadows are so soft, I could just pack it on and blend the edges a little bit with the same brush. As you can see, like it easily fluffed off. The colors are there, but it's just that since the eyeshadows are way too soft, it's kind of hard to work with it and create like a dimension. For the lid, I might actually try this shade right here. So what I am actually going to do is to pop on a little bit of base so that the eyeshadow will stick. And I'm going to blend that out. I am going to go back to that deeper shade that we used and slowly blend that together. I am going to pick up this brush and pat that. That's actually pretty, but I want to add a little bit of sparkle, so I'm going to go and use the white shade right there, which swatches beautiful, but once you swipe it onto the skin, it has more of like specks of glitter. So I'm going to use the same brush and lightly tap that on top. And this shade has a lot of fallout, so just keep that in mind. So I've just popped on the lashes, and I have been wearing these lashes for the past couple of videos, and if you're wondering, this is from Viso Free, and this is the wispy lashes. I usually get them from AliExpress, and I've just finished my bronzer and foundation. One thing that I've noticed is that the shades in here are actually quite applicable for blush, so I think what I'm going to do is to use this shade right here since we have like somewhat of a berry-ish kind of look. So I'm going to pop that shade on a face brush and grab that much. This is a little bit powdery, so a little goes a long way, and kind of sweep that across the cheek and dab a little bit, and that created a nice berry flush to the skin. If you went a little overboard, just grab your powder brush to kind of tap that off. And for highlighter, I am going to use the same palette. So I'm going to use this shade right here, which has more of that pinky sheen with a mixture of that glittery shade that we patted on our lids. That's a pretty highlight. Just be aware that it's a little bit glittery since that white shade has got specks of glitter, but on the face it actually looks real pretty. Now for the lower lash line, I am going to pick up this shade right here that we use on our lids, and I'm going to put that all over the eyes and a little bit lower. To smoke the lower lash line, I am going to go and maybe use this shade right here. Oh, and I forgot to swatch this one. So that shade right there is black, but it has like specks of purple glitter, which you can hardly tell, and that shade right there is actually quite terrible. It doesn't swatch properly. So what I'm going to do is to put this shade right here underneath my eyes. For the added shimmer, I am going to pick up this shade right here and pop that on the inner part. And I'm going to go back to that initial shade that we used to blend everything. For the inner corner highlight, I am going to go and use this shade right here. I'm going to focus that on the lower lash line because it's that purple silver shade, and a little bit on the brow bone. For the lips, I'm actually not quite sure on what to wear, but I have like options, so I think I'm gonna go for this kind of lip, and this is the Australis matte lip cream. So before that, I'm going to line my lips with the MAC Soar lip liner, Australis Velour matte lip cream, and this one is in the shade Osaka. Since the liquid lip is a little bit too matte for me, I'm going to use this MAC lipstick, and this one is in the shade Plumful. I believe that's our makeup look. So here is the full makeup done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My thoughts on this eyeshadow palette. One, the price is not breakable. I paid $25 New Zealand on this one, and I purchased this from Life Pharmacy. The shades in here are actually beautiful. You could definitely use this for face and eyes, just like I did. Just be careful though, because the mattes in here are very soft. So when working with them, especially when you're blending, it tends to spread out. So one thing I could recommend is to just tap the matte shadows on the lids and then blend it a little bit, because if you just fluff it off like a normal eyeshadow, chances are you won't get any of the pigment to stick on the lids. I feel like if you have like a sticky eye base, that could definitely work, but because I have such an oily lid, I had to set my lids. The shimmers are pretty good. Like, you could get away applying the shimmers on the lids without any sort of primer or anything like that, but if you want them to pop, definitely either wet it or put like a concealer underneath. I'm just glad that there's an affordable eyeshadow palette that is out there for grabs. And for this eyeshadow palette would have to be the Norvina eyeshadow palette because of the purples. Now that eyeshadow palette retails for $45 US, or if you buy it from Sephora New Zealand it's like $80, whereas this one right here is only $25. So if you weigh the cost and the colors as well, might as well get this one, even though it's kind of hard to work with, but it's definitely a lot cheaper and you could pretty much get a lot of use out of this palette. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more updates and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!